Okay, so today we are going to learn about the law of sines. So the law of sines helps us find measures of sides and angles in just any old triangle. So if we know the measures of two angles and the length of a side, so if we're using angle, angle, side, or angle, side, angle, then we can find all the other measures in the triangle. So our law of sines, I'm just going to give you the gist of it. So the law of sines is going to be the sine of A, sine of angle A, over the side of little a, equals the sine of angle B over the side length B, equals the sine of angle C over small c. So what we're saying is that the sine of the angle, so the sine of angle A, is going to be over the opposite side, which is just going to be that smaller a. Okay, so when we start setting these up, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to label my triangles. So I'm going to have A, B, C, and we're going to label everything we know. So we know that angle A is going to be 48 degrees. We know that angle B is going to be 93 degrees. We know that the length of AC, so AC is going to be 15. So we want to find the length of BC. So BC is this one right here. I'm going to call it X. So what we can do is we are going to compare the sine of our angle B, which is 93, over its opposite side, which is 15, equals the sine of that 48 over the opposite side, which we just said was X. Now that we have a proportion set up, we can cross multiply, which means we're going to have X sine of 93 equals 15 sine of 48. So to solve for X, we're just going to divide both sides by the sine of 93, which leaves us with X equals 15 sine of 48 over the sine of 93. When we put that into our calculator, that's going to give us that X equals about 11.2, because it said to round to the nearest tenth. So our answer is going to be 11.2. Let's go ahead and try the got it problem. So if we've got A, B, and C, we've still got that A equals 48 and B equals 93 and AC equals 15. We actually don't want to find BC. We want to find AB, okay? So we know from our triangle angle sum theorem that we can find this angle C right here, okay? So to find this angle C, we are going to have 93 plus 48 plus C equals 180. So that gives us 141 plus C equals 180. And that leaves us with C equals 39. So this is going to equal 39, and we want to find AB, okay? So we're still going to compare this sine of 93 over 15 equals the sine of this 39 over X, okay? So we are going to cross multiply, which leaves us with X times sine of 93 equals 15 sine of 39. We're going to divide both sides by that sine of 93, which leaves us with X equals 15 sine of 39 over sine of 93. When we put that into our calculator, That gives us about 9.5. So 9.5 is going to be our answer. We go on to the next page. We have a ship that's been at sea longer than expected and only has enough fuel to sail another 42 miles. So it has 2 lighthouses in its view. And they're both located 40 miles apart. So we want to see if it can sail to either lighthouse safely. So what we're going to do is we're going to find X. We are also going to find Y. But the first thing we need to do is we need to find this angle right here. So to find that angle, we're going to use our triangle angle sum theorem. And we're going to do 70 plus 52 plus, I'm going to call that S because it's at the ship, equals 180. When we do that, that gives me 122 plus S equals 180, which means that S equals 58. So this is going to be 58 right here. So we're going to have to set up 2 different proportions, which is fine. First thing we're going to do is we're going to compare this angle from the ship to the distance of 40 miles. So we're going to have that sine of 58 over 40 equals, let's solve for X first, so we're going to have that sine of 52 over X. So to solve for that, we're going to cross multiply, which gives us X sine of 58 equals 40 sine of 52. Divide both sides by that sine of 58. That leaves us with X equals 40 sine 52 over the sine of 58. So when we put that into our calculator, X is going to equal about 37.2 miles. Okay, and we are going to find the other, we're going to find our Y, so we're still going to have that sine of 58 over 40 equals, now we're going to compare this 70, so we're going to have that sine of 70 over Y. When we cross multiply that, that gives us Y sine of 58 equals 40 sine of 70. So we're going to divide both sides by that sine of 58 again. Okay, and that leaves us with Y equals 40 sine of 70 over the sine of 58, which means that our Y is going to equal, when we put it into our calculator, about 44.3 miles. So that means that our ship, since it only has 40 miles worth of fuel, 42 miles worth of fuel left, it can only make it to this X, which means it can only go, so our ship can only sail to that Port City lighthouse. Okay. So this next one, we have a right fielder that fields a softball between first and second base. And we want to see if they throw it to second base, how far does she have to throw it? So the first thing we need to do is we need to find this angle right here so that we can compare it to the 60 feet. So that means we're going to have 68 plus 40 plus R equals 180. That leaves us with 108 plus R equals 180. So R is going to equal 72. So if this is 72, we can start writing our law of sines. So we're going to have this sine of 72 over 60 equals, since we're looking for this side right here, we need to find the opposite angle, which is at 40. So we're going to have that sine of 40 over X. I'm going to cross multiply here. So we're going to have x sine of 72 equals 60 sine of 40. We're going to divide both sides by that sine of 72. Which leaves us with x equals 60 sine of 40 over the sine of 72, which is going to equal about 40.6 feet. We'll put it into our calculator. Okay, so if we know the lengths of two sides and the measure of a non-included angle, so if we have a side angle, then we can find all the other measures in the triangle. So if we have RST, so RST, okay, actually I'm going to change that around just a little bit. So this is going to be R, and this is going to be S, okay? So it tells us that RT is going to be 11, it tells us that ST is going to be 18, and it tells us that our measure of our angle R is going to be 120, okay? And it wants us to find the measure of angle S. So what we're going to do is we're going to have that sine of 120, so our angle is always going to be on top, over 18 equals the sine of S over 11. We're going to cross multiply. That leaves us with 11 sine of 120 equals 18 sine S, and we are going to divide both sides by 18, which leaves us with sine of S equals 11 sine of 120 over 18. So we learned from last class that if we want to find the angle within the sine, we're going to have S equals the inverse of sine of 11 sine 120 over 18. So when we get that, that means that S equals 31.95, which is about 32 degrees. Okay. You can go ahead and try this one. We have K, L, M. And we've got LM equals 9, KM equals 14, and L is going to equal 105. And we are looking for K. So we're going to have the sine of 105 over 14 equals the sine of K over 9. We cross multiply, that gives us 9 sine of 105 equals 14 sine of K. So when we divide both sides by 14, that leaves us with sine of K equals 9 sine of 105 over 14, which means that K equals the inverse of sine over 9 sine 105 over 14, which gives us that K equals 38.4 degrees. And that should be it.